Hill Jr. He is the NFL and Cowboys columnist for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. That used to be my stomping ground when I was at TCU. And he's on radio, on ESPN Radio, frequently. I know you've heard him talking about everything Cowboys and football. How you doing?
I am good. I am good. We talk Cowboys football. We also talk COVID-19
Oh,
and
yeah.
social justice right now as well. So we
Yeah, I
cover it
mean,
all.
it's not like you're not busy right now, would you say?
Yeah, it's there are no sports, but there's plenty of stuff to talk about that intersects the sports world and this whole stick to sports. That's out the window.
Yeah,
Nobody's sticking to sports anymore because there's nothing else to talk about but George Floyd, the social justice, COVID-19, how we're going to come back, how we're going to survive, the economy,
yeah,
you name it, we talk about it.
yeah. Well, that's good. It's keeping you busy. What do you think we have a culture soup moment?
Let's do it. Let's
All
go.
right, awesome. Okay, so I'm always combing the threads. I'm looking at the trends online. And you know what? There's so much going on, it's hard to choose. But let's start with social justice. You know, the other day, one of the things I saw jump off the feed at me was the second statement that came from the NFL with Roger Goodell, the commissioner, who made a statement about race and Black Lives Matter. And a lot of people were stunned, but they also said, wait, something was missing. What are you hearing about that?
Well, actually, it was a third statement.
It was a third
You
one?
know,
Okay.
he finally got it right the third time.
Right?
It was not the second time; it was the third statement. The first couple of statements were like most of these statements are. They're whitewashed and they're polished and antiseptic, and they don't really get to the meat of the
Right.
issue, and they don't really talk Black Lives Matter. They talk
Mm-hmm.
about we are against racism, in a
Yes.
generic sense, and but they don't speak on Black Lives Matter and police brutality and the killing of black people. So they don't really
Right.
get to what the issue is. And the third statement video, which is what everybody's doing nowadays, it's they don't put out press releases, they put out videos on social media.
Right.
That's what they do. And it was actually in response to the players. The players are now really showing their power and using their power that they have to enact change. And the players basically demanded we need you to respect Black Lives Matter, support Black Lives Matter, also admit that you were wrong in how you handled the anthem protests in years past. And
Yeah.
so that prompted the third and final video from the commissioner, NFL commissioner, saying, we get it, we're listening, we hear you. Yes, we support Black Lives Matter. We understand that black players, black athletes are the foundation of NFL, that we know would be no NFL without you. And yes, we handled the anthem protest wrong. But what was missing, what
Yes.
the point you were trying to get to,
Mm-hmm.
what was missing is there was no mention of the aggrieved person. There was no mention of Colin Kaepernick, who started it all. And when you don't mention Colin Kaepernick, how can we really take you seriously?
Right.
Especially when it comes to the anthem protests. And really, they're not anthem protests. They're protests during the anthem. We need to say it right because they need
Yes.
to say it right. It was protests during the anthem. They weren't protesting the anthem. They weren't protesting the flag. But as I've said, and I've said many times on my show, you have to make it right with Colin Kaepernick because your uncomfortableness, your inability to handle Colin Kaepernick's knee on the field, you
Yeah.
can draw a bright red line to George to Derek Chauvin's knee on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. You can't handle that knee. It begat this knee.
Absolutely.
You got blood on your hands to a certain extent because
Yeah.
these are the conversations that Kaepernick wanted to have in 2016. This is what got him blackballed per se out of the lid because he wanted to have conversations. He was trying to bring to light in a peaceful manner, a peaceful protest, this
Right.
knee on the field during the anthem to bring to light issues of police brutality against people of color, and that was too much for you. In that environment, your inability to handle that is what fostered an environment where Derek Chauvin could kill George Floyd, and that's where we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting because I drew the designation between the statement and this last comment he made in somebody's interview. He was actually in an interview when they asked him about Colin Kaepernick. And that's when he said what he did. You know what? I encourage teams to look at Colin Kaepernick.
Well,
So,
that's his fourth statement. Okay, so
yes.
I was dealing with the first three. Now it's
Right.
the fourth time he finally acknowledged that yes, we need to make. I support teams in getting Colin Kaepernick back, but the problem here is that um, the commissioner is not the NFL.
Yeah.
The commissioner does not run the NFL.
Right.
The commissioner works at the behest of the 32 owners.
Yes.
Okay, the commissioner cannot hire or fire anybody from a team.
Right.
It's up to the owners to do that, and he cannot make an owner do that.
No.
So it's one thing for the commissioner to say that. It's the owners to put teeth behind that statement and behind this philosophy, this new philosophy that we are open to Colin Kaepernick coming back. Now the news now is that there are certain teams that are interested that they may bring him in for a workout. We will see. There's talk. Anthony Lynn, the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, he's a Salina native. He's from around here. Went to Texas Tech. He used to coach for the Cowboys. He's now the head coach with the San Diego Chargers, one of a few black coaches in the NFL. He's saying that Colin Kaepernick is on his list of guys to work out. And so we'll see how that works out. There are a couple other teams that have been linked to Kaepernick in the last couple of days. So we'll see. But again, the commissioner can say one thing. It's up to the owners and the teams to actually put it into practice.
Yeah. So a lot of reports linked the commissioner to Donald Trump because of, he's donated. And so have so many of the owners. Not all of them, but many of them. Do you think that where Trump sits now with the public and also what the commissioner has said might move these owners off the dime? What have you heard?
Well, that's the question. And, here in Dallas, it's about Jerry Jones.
Yes, it
you
is.
haven't gotten to Jerry Jones, but he is the number one owner in regards to these issues and this situation, certainly with the protest during the anthem, because he's the one who basically led the charge or the players not to protest.
Right.
And he's the one who told the Cowboys they can't protest. If you protest in Dallas, you won't be on the team.
Right.
And so, but Jerry Jones has said nothing. Jerry Jones has been quiet. Now, there could be two schools of thought here. Either Jerry Jones is waiting, Jerry Jones is not on board, or Jerry Jones is being a good soldier and letting the commissioner speak for the league.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know, because in the past, Jerry Jones has not been quiet about anything.
No.
Jerry Jones has not been afraid to talk about any issue and inject himself into any issue. But suddenly, Jerry Jones is quiet.
Yeah.
So it's an issue. It's a question. But it's not hard to get on the bandwagon now. Everybody's on the bandwagon. Okay?
Well, you know what? And that's the
You're
thing.
not controversial anymore getting on this bandwagon.
Right. You know what? It's one thing to have a change of heart and be along with the movement, but some people are actually shamed into it, which, you know what? I'll take it. Whatever it takes to get you to the right point. But there are folks that are out there that don't want to be that person. They don't want to be that white person or on that side of history. So now's the time.
Right, get on the bandwagon. It ain't hard. It ain't. Again, it's not a challenge to get on. It's not controversial, and it's no longer controversial to get on this bandwagon because it's moving. So you might well get on it. And there are people that think that Jerry Jones will be on the bandwagon, but until he says so, we don't know. But what we do know is the players are speaking up.
Yeah.
And the players are taking control of the narrative. They're realizing they have more power. You look, the NFL players are saying it doesn't matter. There will be a new round of protests this year. Yeah. And there's nothing they can do to stop them. The question is whether there will be Cowboy players who protest. Because there will be protesters all over the league, and there will protesters during the national anthem. Will Cowboy players do it? If they do so, what is Jerry going to do? The bottom line is he's not going to do anything.
Right.
Because if Dak Prescott decides to protest, if Zeke decides to protest, if DeMarcus Lawrence decides to protest, he's not benching them.
Well, and the whole team, what will you do if the whole team kneels?
Right, he's not going to do any of that. But certainly the superstars, he's not going to do that. So, he might as well come on kicking and screaming because the bandwagon is going this way. You don't want to be on the wrong side of history.
Well, and I'm so glad that the players have finally realized the power that they hold. I wrote about this way back when I was at TCU in my master's thesis and looking at professional sports all the way back to like Little League, the whole culture, which is set apart from everyone. But it's so different. I mean, even the language, owners, we're on the field. I mean, there's some imagery here. And I'm wondering if this is the beginning of chipping away at systemic social inequities inside of sports. Because, I mean, we could go down the list. Maybe the Chiefs need to change something about Their mascot. I don't know, But
Well,
owners, or aren't they starting to call themselves governors or something like that? That
well,
would.
that's the NBA. I mean, if you buy a team, you own the team. I mean, we can, I mean, I don't know if we're gonna get too far about owning a team. And you own a business,
Yeah.
you own a team. I mean, so people own businesses, so they, employees that's the owner of the business. So I mean, that's we can deal with that another time. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as the mascots and different things like that, the Washington Redskins are the one that needs to change.
Yeah.
And you can point to the Chiefs, and the Redskins is a slur.
Yeah.
Okay, the Redskins,
Absolutely.
that's actually a slur.
Yeah.
And they need to change that, number one. And we can talk about the Chiefs and the Atlanta Braves and the Cleveland Indians and the Florida State Seminoles and all the other stuff. But the Redskins, that name is a
Yeah.
slur.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
amazing it's
that
lasted this long.
yeah, that's the one that's number one. And it's funny because um, the Redskins are now supporting Juneteenth. Jerry Jones is supporting Juneteenth. It's funny because I wrote a story the other day. Jerry Jones is yet to talk about race, but he's supporting
He supported
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
He can get you some red soda water and some
Yes, it's some
watermelon,
barbecue.
and barbecue out there
He's
and
invited
start
himself to
celebrating
the picnic.
Juneteenth. He's finally giving his players off for Juneteenth, and it's funny because
Yeah.
we need to do a Miss Juneteenth pageant out at the Cowboys complex. See, I'm from Texas. I'm Texas born and
I
bred, so
love it.
I've been celebrating Juneteenth all my life. We have parades and
Yes.
church programs and
Yes.
festivals and food and
Yes.
like you got to understand about the big red soda that comes with it and the Miss Juneteenth pageant. Okay,
Yes.
I grew up with Miss Juneteenth pageant, so I'm trying to give these guys instructions on the NFL and the Cowboys on how you handle Juneteenth, what you need to do with Juneteenth. So yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of these teams are, and I was getting back to the Redskins, but they're also a team that is acknowledging the Juneteenth holiday. They're
Yeah.
acknowledging race. So if we're going to go down this road, in which everybody's going down this road and getting rid of Columbus statues and getting rid of Confederate statues, and if we're open about race, then you need to open about what the Redskins is about, and that's about
Yeah.
that's racism. And so if
Yeah.
we're moving past vestiges of racism, we're making amends and showing empathy, then the Redskins, the NFL need to address the Redskin team name.
Absolutely. And you know what? This is an opportunity even for a skeptic who their heart may not even be there, for some good PR. Could we
Yeah,
just go for some good PR for a
it is a
second?
good PR. The problem is that long-standing fans, are going to obviously be against it because that's our tradition, and they may lose season ticket holders. It's like NASCAR. The bottom line is this, as I've said last week, and you can use it.
Hmm.
The NFL got punked by NASCAR.
Yeah.
NASCAR got rid of the Confederate flag.
That was
That's their
huge.
base,
That was
okay, of,
huge.
of the South. And you couldn't go to a NASCAR race without the Confederate flag. And those people love the Confederacy, and they potentially, or is potentially going to lose fans over the Confederate flag, but they are doing what's right,
Well, they lost the
okay?
driver.
Yes,
He
yeah,
retired.
well, he quit, and he was no good. He
Yeah.
was a loser like the Confederacy. He won nothing. But
He
if
can take his flag
NASCAR
somewhere.
if NASCAR can be courageous and forge ahead and look for new fans, who are not racist and who are not celebrating traitors, then the NFL and everybody else should be able to do the same thing. So the NFL got punked by NASCAR. How bad do you have to be when you get punked on race by
Yes.
NASCAR?
Yes, yes. So before we move on to COVID-19 and what the season could look like, tell me what the players are feeling. I know you talk to them often. Are they feeling more empowered? Are they feeling like the winds of change are blowing? What are they feeling right now?
I think they're empowered. And I don't get to talk to them a lot because we're all in COVID and everybody's, doing their thing
Mm-hmm.
and supposed to be social distancing and staying home. And of course, they're not. They're out there in the streets, but that's a whole other story. But players are the thing about 2020 is the players are everybody's on social media
Mm-hmm.
and they're voicing and they're using their power and using their voice to impact change on social media. And they're explaining themselves and certainly with raw emotion in the days after the George Floyd death, and they're continuing to talk about it, whether it's the NFL players, NBA players. There's right now in the NBA, there's a faction of players who don't want to return and don't want to
Yeah.
restart the season because they think it's going to take away from the focus on racism
Right.
and the movement that's going right now. So the players are using that power all over the country. The quarterback of Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson, and one of the former receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, they went to Clemson. They're from Clemson, and they use their voice, they use their power of social media impact to help the students in the school get rid of a former vice president whose name was on honors college because he
Mm-hmm.
was a secessionist and a slave owner.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an example of how the players are using their power to impact change. The players at the University of Texas are doing the same thing.
That's what I was going to
They're
mention.
using,
OSU, you seeing
yeah,
some of these young guys get
yeah,
out
they're
on
all
Twitter
using their
and
power
call
to
out their
impact change on
coaches.
campus.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the NFL players are feeling the same way. They're feeling their oats, and it's about
And they
time
should.
because
They
the
really
game is
should.
about them.
They make a
Without them,
lot
there
of
would be no
money for
game.
a lot of people.
Yeah, without them would be no game. And just at Texas, because that's personal with me because that's where I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
But um, what the players at Texas are asking for is not new.
Yeah.
The student senate, a lot of student organizations sent a letter to the president over a week ago with many of the same demands that the players asked for. It got no attention.
Yeah.
As soon as the players said, "Hey, we're not going to play.
Yeah.
We're not going to support you guys. We're going to boycott if you don't get this done." It's got national media attention. It's got the attention of the president. Now people are talking about it. So the president of the school.
Yeah.
And so that's the way the players can support the students and support everybody else in getting changed and acted on campus. So yeah, they're pushing for change in Texas. They're pushing for change in schools all across the country. And it's because the players are using their power now.
I love it. And I got to tell you about this little little known black history fact at TCU. Do you know this is how we got MLK Day at TCU? Way back when Jim Wacker was there, I'm dating myself. The Black Student Caucus decided the only way we could do it was to leverage the players. And if they were on board to walk off from practice, they could threaten to walk off on Saturday and let's see where we get. And they were scared. They were really scared. They were supposed to meet us at Frog Fountain at a certain time, and they were going to walk away from practice. Well, they went to Coach Wacker, and in Wacker's, you should applaud him for this because he got arm in arm with those boys and walked all the way up to the student center and met us. And
That's
we got
awesome.
MLK Day. And that's when we realized, we're like, these athletes have so much power. They didn't even realize how much power they had.
That's awesome. I remember Jim Wacker really well.
Yeah, he's a
Those
good
TC
guy. We didn't win
Yeah.
much.
No,
But he was a good
yeah,
guy.
he got caught cheating, paying
Yeah.
players, but we won't go down that road.
Yeah,
That was
that's
part
a
of,
whole different
that
culture
was
soup,
part of his
right?
legacy too, but we won't go down that road.
All right. Then there is the third beast of the apocalypse. And, the first one, of course, is race. The second one is a failure in leadership. We won't even get into that. And now coronavirus. So coronavirus has nixed everything social that we know, especially sports. So now we have the NFL trying to grapple with what a season could or could not look like. What are you hearing?
Yeah, the NFL's trying to come back, but they have the power of time because football season doesn't really start till September.
Right.
So unlike basketball and baseball, basketball had to stop in the middle of the season, they're trying to restart. Baseball
That's
was
summer.
supposed to start in April, and
Right.
they're finally trying to negotiate things to restart. Hockey is trying to restart as well. All these leagues are trying to restart. And as I said earlier, there's some basketball players who think that if we restart, it's going to take the conversation off race and the conversation off what's going on. But there are serious issues. There are people that are worried about COVID-19 and the things they have in place, and whether it's going to be enough to prevent them from getting sick. It's a serious issue. It's a
Yeah.
serious question because you look at the college level, they're making the college kids sign waivers. If you get COVID-19, you hold the school
That's
to no
kind of
liability.
crazy.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
I
The
see
internet-
it, but I don't see it. I mean,
No.
goodness.
Yeah, that's crazy. So the NBA is trying to come back, and they're going to go into a bubble in Orlando for 3.5 months. You have to be away from lots of friends and family for 3.5 months to play basketball, and they'll have all these amenities, and they're going to be testing you and doing a lot of different things to try to come back to give us something else to talk about, give the something to watch on TV, something to distract us, and it was initially about give us something to do outside of COVID-19,
Yeah.
but now it's coming in counter with the social justice movement. The NFL is again they're trying to come back as well. They have things in place. They have protocols in place to try to be as safe as possible. The problem here is with all these situations is the unknown of COVID-19.
Yeah.
There's no cure, okay? There's no vaccine, and there's supposed to be a second wave.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be a second wave in October. So these everybody has plans. They have contingency plans. They will come back. Also have alternate plans, and if they have to stop and restart, those are out there as well. So we'll see. But the governors of Texas, of course, we're in Texas. They reopened things, and there's been a spike. You know,
Yes.
there's been a
Thank
huge
you,
spike,
Memorial Day
and
weekend.
yes, and then you got, as I was talking to someone today, you got, Father's Day weekend coming up, you got Juneteenth coming up, you got July 4th coming up, where people are going to gather and be together. So, we'll see. We got really about a month before things start ramping back up. The NBA and baseball are going to start mid to late July.
Well,
You
and I
know,
heard there's a tennis match that's actually going to go forward, but no fans in the
yeah, well,
stadium.
just
They're
like
going to have to
golf,
watch
golf.
on television.
Yeah, golf, had a tournament in Fort Worth with no fans, and tennis will, be no fans. And the difference with those sports is that you can social distance,
Yes.
that you can't do that in football. You
Football's a
can't do that in
contact, full
basketball.
contact
Yeah, in basketball,
sport.
you're sweating on each other and
Hmm.
everything else. So it's the same way. You can't do that. You can do that in tennis, and you can do that in golf to a certain extent. So we'll see. Those are really the test cases, and we'll see. The funny thing about it is, we already know that we've already had some petri dish test cases with the protests.
Yeah.
So with all these people coming together for protests, we'll see if there's any rise in COVID cases
Yeah.
because of the protests, and we'll know about that in a few weeks, and that will give you an idea of whether we can have fans in the stands. Whether that's if you don't get a lot of rise because of the protests, then maybe you can have fans in the stands. But if you do get rise in cases from the protests, why would you ever go to a game? Why would you want to be around
Yeah.
50,000 people?
Yeah. I saw a tweet from Des Bryant that said that he had tested negative for, oh my
Well,
goodness. It really kind of brings it home, doesn't it, when you see
Well, that's
that?
what it is. It brought it to our doorstep. It's not just Dez because Zeke, the Cowboys running back, tested positive,
Oh,
and he's
wow.
asymptomatic. And so Dez has been working out with Zeke. That's one reason why Dez tested. But
Oh.
Ezekiel Elliott tested positive, and again, and it's with most of these athletes, they're going to be asymptomatic. They're going to be fine. He feels fine. But what people need to understand is not just about them. It's about
Yeah.
the people they come in contact with. It's about their family
Their
members. And
families.
Zeke's mother has type 2 diabetes, and so she was
Mm.
afraid, and she had just been around Zeke. So,
Yeah.
and that's what people need to understand. Like, while you maybe feel fine, while the studies say that even if you get it, it's not going to be a big deal on you. It's about the people you come in contact with
You're
and how it
absolutely
affects
right.
them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've been staying real close to home because my daughter shuttles between my house, my sister's house, and my senior parents. They're
Right,
boomers. So we can
right,
triangulate right there, but the minute I start going into groups and socializing it, I risk my family.
right, right. And your daughter and all of that, because kids, they're out there, being
Yes.
social and doing the things, and they're trying to be cautious. And the thing about it is that you can be cautious 5 days. Every day I'm wearing a mask, wearing a mask, wearing a mask. That sixth day, I forgot my mask.
Yeah.
Or I touched something,
Yeah.
I touched somebody,
And then
so
wiped your face or whatever it
right, or
is.
you touch your face or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. That's why it's tough. I mean, it's tough for us to, self protect,
Yeah.
and self police, and you got restaurants that are not policing. You got other, things that are not putting things in place and enforcing things. So it's the unknown, and
Yeah.
that's what's the scary part for everybody.
So I got to ask you, everybody says that there is no going back to the way we were in society or anything. If you were to look in your crystal ball, what does football look like in 5 years?
Well, I'd like to think that my crystal ball says that we're going to have a cure and we're going to have
Mm-hmm.
a vaccine, just like
Mm-hmm.
we had one for the flu. It's just taking a while. I would
Yeah.
like to think that we're smart enough, and we have enough smart people, and they got enough people on the case that they're going to come up with a vaccine. That we can come back to some sense of normalcy. I just you got all these stadiums and the like, and I think we'll be back, going to games. We may wear masks. We may be more precautious.
Yeah.
I think that one thing that's going to stick with us is washing our hands.
Yes.
People wash their hands like nobody's business now. They weren't doing that before. You know that.
And it makes me
Restaurant people
wonder,
coming
what
out of
were we
fast food.
doing? I mean, the world is nasty as it is.
Right, but we touching our phones. You watch
Yeah.
I mean, your phone is one of the nastiest things you have. So
Yes.
I just think that some of our habits will change, maybe for the better. we'll be more conscious about that. We may not hug as much. We may not kiss as much. We may not
Mm-hmm.
handshake as much and all this stuff. But certainly, we're going to be washing our hands more and cleaning up after ourselves more.
From a social justice perspective.